Lena Hendrix, dare I say finally, welcome to Book Club.
Hello. Hi. I am so happy to be here. I listen to every episode, so this is just a dream. I love it.
A true
Thank you for having
honor.
me.
I know I talk about you all the time, so this was far overdue to get to discuss all the things you have going on because this is the year of Lena Hendrix, I think.
It feels like it's a lot of things that are happening, but they're also wonderful, exciting things I'm
Incredible.
really looking forward to. So it's great. Busy is good.
Yes.
Busy is always good
Ground
for me.
to cover. So I can't
Hmm.
wait to talk about it all. People know I'll be having things to say about Beneath the Frost, about Star Harbor because it's everything to me. We'll talk about the Kings. We'll talk about maybe what's coming, what's next.
Love it.
To the listeners, someone's car is being towed outside of my house, so we're just gonna rock with it, and we will send them good vibes out the window. And I'll just turn it over to you and mute myself, Lena. I start every episode with guests talking about villain origin story. So, how did you get into reading? How did you get into writing? Are they connected? What is your beginnings in the romance genre?
Gosh, I can't think of a time where I wasn't reading and or writing. I was always an avid reader, definitely leaned more toward romance, even at a young age. I remember picking up books that were probably slightly above, towing the line to inappropriate, but
Sure.
I loved the romance stories. I liked historicals a lot. I really always enjoyed reading and being lost in worlds. That came along with writing incredibly bad poetry. I discovered haiku and slam poetry when I was probably 11 or 12. And it was
Amazing.
always really fun to go back. My parents kept everything. I have old journals and diaries,
Fun.
and it's so funny to read. I grew up in middle America in a pretty well adjusted household, and the
Sure.
angst that is in these stories, I do believe that is where the brother's best friend villain origin story may have
I love it.
started, because I am a little sister. I have two older brothers.
Sure.
And so, yeah, so it was always a part of my life, but
Yeah.
I never realized writing was an option for me. I grew up
Yeah.
pretty middle to lower middle class income family, blue collar workers.
Mhm.
Um, my mother was a waitress turned secretary. My dad
Mhm.
worked, he owned an auto parts store and then later in public works. So to me, the idea of going to college was a big deal. I was the first
Sure.
woman in my family to even go to college.
Wow.
But the idea that I could go to school to do something creative
Mhm.
was, it wasn't even a thought in my brain. So I
Sure.
became a teacher, and I was a teacher. I taught special education for 14 years. And then writing became something I did on the side. I was moonlighting, and it stemmed from looking for a specific story that I'm sure exists in the
Sure.
world somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
Mhm.
And I thought I wanted this very specific type of female main character. I was looking for a
Yeah.
very specific type of hero. And I remember over a glass of wine with my husband, I looked at him and said, I think I'm going to write a book. And he kind of looked at me and paused for a moment and said, well, can you do that? And I, with my whole chest, said, I don't know, but I'm going to try. And so he was the only person that knew I was writing for over a year, probably. I didn't
Wow.
even tell my best friends. I didn't tell anybody, because I thought,
Yeah.
if I'm really bad at this, if it hasn't improved since those 12-year-old poetry days, then nobody has to know.
Sure.
But I've been really lucky in that people resonated with my stories. And, I've had people with me from the very beginning, and they've been able to see my growth as a writer and a storyteller. And it has changed everything for me. It's so fun living the life that I've always imagined. And yeah, it's been such a journey that I just love. I love where I'm at right now and being able to craft these characters, and it's a good time.
Yeah, well, it shows. I love your stories. And that kind of brings me to a question I've been loving asking lately of do you tell your characters their story or do they tell you their story? And how does that process work for you?
That is fascinating, because I really do have to think about it. I have an idea about the type of story I want to write. So I might
Sure.
start with whether it be tropes or, oh, that might be really fun. Usually it's a scene that plays in my head. And so
Love.
in Beneath the Frost, specifically, I remember it, there is one scene. So for those who don't know, he is recently, within a year, a single leg above the knee amputee. And I had this sort of vision of the two of them where she's trying to get him out of his shell and she proposes this idea of going sledding and he's grumpy about it and kind of reluctantly there with her. And in a moment of, well, you need to get over yourself, she just shoves him down the hill.
Yeah.
That was the first scene to me that I was like, oh, okay, this is really fun. And she's not going to baby him. She's going to
No.
be good for him and sunshiny for him and prove to him, hey, you're not less, you're just different and life
Yep.
can still be really fun. So a lot of times it happens like that, where I'll see a scene and sort of build off that. But characters do tend to surprise me. Part of my favorite thing as a writer is the discovery. I'll have the bones of a story. I know kind
Yep.
of what the tropes are. I know where I think it might be going. But when I'm in flow and when I'm writing, my favorite part is that light bulb moment of like,
This
right,
is
because
good.
then XYZ happens. And it's just, to me, that's the joy of it. And that's why I like
Yeah.
writing so much, is that process of sitting down and I'm living it like a movie in my head. So for
Sure.
me, it's that plot twist or that's that discovery that makes it really, really fun to just
Yeah.
create it.
Incredible. And do your characters exist in your head as like their own entities after their story is done, or do they have their moment in the sun and then they're onwards?
I feel as though I do my very best to wrap things up in their story and move onwards, because I always get really excited about the next couple that I'm writing. I
Sure.
think it's just the futuristic part of my brain is thinking forward, but they are
Yep.
fun to revisit, which is why I love interconnected standalone so much, is because
Yeah.
some of your favorite characters can pop up, or you think who would be really great in this scene. Especially if it's somebody unexpected that people
Sure.
loved and they get to see again. That's always really fun. But for the most part, I feel really good at the end of a story, leaving them in their happily ever after, leaving them in their bubble.
Yes. And letting them have their time to shine. I
Yeah.
love that. So this is a bit of a pivot and a little bit into the nitty gritty. I
Mm.
apologize, but I love your prose and
Mm.
just some of your lines. I read Beneath the Frost early, and in the document, I just kept like commenting, be like, "Oh my gosh, this line is crazy!" Just so well written. Does that have anything to do with your poetry roots? And how do you marry all these fun plot lines and tropes and characters with some of these just like killer lines? The one that's coming to mind right now is she in Beneath the Frost when she says he's like an echo, like
And no
something all
resonance.
resonance, and I'm like,
Yeah.
ah, that's so good. Where do you get those lines? Do you have a like notebook of them?
Oh gosh, my
What is?
12-year-old would be so stunned to hear that her
Yes,
melodramatic poetry is like finding new life. But yeah, it's a little bit of
love
that.
it.
I will say most of the time it is happening when I'm in that flow state where the line
Just
comes
comes.
and it's like, oh, that hits. I really like that.
Sure.
But there are times, many times, where I will think of a singular line. I have no idea who it belongs to, what book it goes to, or where it's sort of come from. It's just this
Sure.
divine inspiration. My notes app is insane. And I
Love
might
that.
have, sometimes I go back to it. It makes no sense.
Sure.
I was like, I don't really drink all that much, but sometimes I'm like, was I drunk when I wrote this? Because I don't even know what that means, you know?
Sure.
But there are other times where I just know I have this nugget and it's saved and I have to go back.
Hmm.
I'm like, I need to find that line. I know it's perfect. And
Yes,
I'll scroll back through my notes app and I find it and it fits in.
I love that.
It just all seems to come together. I will struggle sometimes if I think of a line, I have to pause and ask
Sure.
myself, did I use that already? And
Yes.
sometimes I do a quick document search, especially if
Sure.
it's a line
Control
that's
F.
unique a
Sure.
little bit. And I might say like, oh, did I use that already? But for the most part, it really does flow. A lot of it is I'm so in my characters' heads. I do a
Sure.
ton of character work beforehand. So it feels like the lines that come out are individual to those people because they
Yes.
are real in my head.
Yep. I love that. When I was thinking about that question for you, I had just watched the Taylor Swift interview of like best, like 30 best alive, living songwriters, and she was like,
Mm,
I have a notebook of lines. And I was like, I wonder if Lena has that because she's so
I
beautifully
do.
lyrical, which I love.
And there
So,
are ones that I've had in that notes app. I've had them in waiting for
sure.
a very long time. And
Love it.
I don't want to shoehorn anything in. I just know that that
When it
beautiful
works, it
line will
works.
find a home somewhere one day. And maybe
Yes.
not. Maybe it just like lives on in my heart. But to me, there are certain things that come to me, or I think of, I don't know, I guess the way I look at the world and I'm like, oh, that's a really pretty way to think of that. And I try to write it down because if I don't, it
Amazing.
is
It's gone.
literally gone forever.
Yeah.
Immediately leaves my brain. I've done that as I'm falling asleep and been thinking of this great line and oh, it's
Yes.
perfect. I know I'll remember
It's
it in the
gone.
morning. It's gone. It
Of course.
flies out the window and then I'm beating myself up for days on end knowing I
Yeah.
had the perfect line and it's just
Brutal.
gone. So now no matter what,
Yes.
I have trained myself to always write it down.
I love that. So similarly, kind of just in the art and practice,
Mm.
do you do anything to fill your creative well or seek out creativity and inspiration? I personally have been, I'm like, I am a crazy person. I've been very into poetry explication of like songs. Like I like sitting down with the lyrics on paper and like just like seeing what someone did with that poetry. Do you have anything similar? Where do you get your creative inspiration? All that fun stuff.
That's beautiful though, because I do think there is something about being analog and offline
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
just my brain thinks of things in a different and special way when I'm not
Yes.
stuck scrolling. I do a lot outside. I love to be outside. I go for walks. I love to be in nature. I garden a lot. And I've recently picked up knitting, truly in my
Love it.
grandma era. I've
Me
picked up
too.
knitting last November. I just
Hmm.
wanted something to do with my hands where my brain can
Yep.
sort of wander, but it's still a process and I enjoy the process. I couldn't care less about the things that I knit when I'm finished. It's I'm really a process girl. So
Yes.
so I do try to do things like that. I love to just be outside and I garden and
Yeah.
I have chickens, so I
Sure.
watch them and they're funny little creatures and it's just I think a way to slow down a little bit because my
Hmm.
brain does tend to work really fast and I like to analyze things a lot, whether it's
Sure.
my writing or the business piece of it
Hmm.
or what do I want next and how do I want this to look?
Yep.
It slows me down so I can actually enjoy and be in the moment. And then I always come out the other side feeling really refreshed and invigorated
Sure.
and ready to go.
There goes the toe, people. I hope all ends well for them. But I love that. Um, Speaking of just being outside and in nature, I feel like a lot of your stories are not that every moment, like, I'm dying over this poor
That
person
poor
being
guy.
towed.
It's a
Okay,
bad day for him.
bad day for him. This is my chance. I feel like a lot of your stories like are so beautifully set where they are. Your past three have been on the coast of Michigan, but even like in Redemption Ranch and out on the ranch, and where do you get your inspiration for your settings?
I love to be outside. That's a huge part of it. All of the ones in Michigan really stem from places I have been.
Hmm.
My parents have a really tiny cottage on a lake on western coast of Michigan, and I love to just drive and see
Yep.
the nature and the beauty of it. I also love when I'm reading books and the setting sort of feels like its own character that you want to be there, you want to live there. I find that fascinating. The ranch in Montana was just a dream of mine and a love for cowboys. And so to me, I thought that setting was so fascinating and seeing the buttes and just the expanse of how big it really is when you're out there. Um yeah, I love the moodiness that a setting can bring and so it makes it really fun to weave some of that in. I think I'm just a nature girly by, I was always this way.
I love that. I ask people about tropes often, of like tropes you are like love to write but haven't written yet. Do you have any setting that you love but haven't gotten to visit yet in your stories?
You know, I just love small towns so much and I I love the idea of something in like West Texas or something that would be sort of cowboy adjacent. I remember growing up, I was a huge Nora Roberts fan. I loved when she would have things set in sort of the moody bayou where it was a little bit creepy and unsettling, but it was also like sweaty and hot. I know that sounds so strange, but I just remembered thinking, wow, that woman, she can make a mood out of a setting, and I love that. And I've never really done anything sort of in the South at all. So that would be something really fun I would explore one day, maybe.
I love that. I'll ask you the trope question now that we're on it. Do you have any tropes that you'd love to write and haven't yet, or just would love to return to? Are there any you'll never write?
That's interesting. I don't know if there's any I would never write. I'm just not a I'm a never say never kind of girl because you don't know. I do think there are some that I have read that I'm like, "Oh, that would be fun." I love a good forbidden trope where you're not supposed to be talking. I love that. Um to me, something about an ex's dad is very highly appealing to me. I have never written that. And yeah, like I was just thinking about it. I don't know that there isn't anything I wouldn't write, but I also do take my commitment and my promise to my readers really seriously. So I wouldn't take any hard lefts that would take them out of sort of their expectations of me in terms of something really dark, or I would have to maybe use a different pen name or something if I ever explored that. I love that to me, when I'm writing them, my stories feel like a cozy Hallmark movie that is also very dirty. And it would take a lot, I think, for me to feel the need to switch completely in genres and do something really out of the box. But there's always tropes that I love to layer together and think about how can I make this one a little bit different? How is it not just a friends to lovers? How is it not just an enemies to lovers? How can I do a little bit of a play on the trope? So it's fun and exciting for me too, because really, much like my knitting, my writing is the most fun while I'm doing it. So I enjoy sort of being in that moment with it.
Love that. Do you have a comfort trope or comfort device that other than small town, I suppose?
Small town really is the comfort in just the setting itself, but I do love anything that is a little bit forbidden, anything that like an enemies to lovers or like a boss's daughter, something where you know you shouldn't be together, but they just cannot help themselves. I like when there's a little bit of snappy banter and back and forth a bit. I love a female main character who can clap back a bit and put a man in his place a little bit. That's always super fun to write. And it's just, those are ones that I always kind of go back to. I don't think that I would be happy writing a female main character who was like, a wilting flower or truly a damsel in distress. She's got to be able to hold her own a little bit.
Absolutely. I feel horrible for this person outside my window. I'm sorry. I just but it's just like it's a tough watch.
I know. Oh, it's heartbreaking. His
I
beautiful
know.
car.
I know. It is. It's like a nice luxury car. You got to feel bad for him. Anyway, so you mentioned Nora. Do you have any required reading for this book club? I know that there's just The World's Your Oyster, but do you have any just like Roman Empire, these are my reads to recommend?
So full disclosure, I am not a rereader. I
Love
don't
that.
know that I have
I'm not really
ever
either.
reread a book. I don't think I have. And if I have, it was on accident and I've noticed it right away. My brain picks up like, wait a minute, I think I know this story. And then it totally takes me out of it. So I'd be hard pressed because I am one of those readers too, who reads really quickly and then immediately forgets everything that happened in the book and just goes on vibes of how the book made me feel. I do think some of the OGs, like Nora Roberts, really are foundational because I remember reading her, and I was reading her in high school and through college. My parents, to this day, in my old bedroom, the top drawer of my dresser is full of books, of Nora Roberts books. And my dad has asked me several times, what do you want me to do with these? I do think it's so great to read those because they're all fade to black too. and they have so much good tension and they allude to what happens behind the bedroom door, but you're never there. And I do remember as a reader, that was a pivotal moment when my oldest, who is now 16, he was an infant, and I was pushing him through the library and I was going through the romance section. I grabbed a random book off the shelf. I wish I could remember what book it was, but I have no idea. And I randomly flipped to a page, figured I'll give it a page or two to see if it's something I might want to check out. And I happened upon an open door sex scene. And I was shook. I had no idea that romance was doing that. And it was so much fun. Immediately checked out the book and dove into sort of the spicier side of romance. So I will say, if you want a masterclass in tension, you need to go back and read some of the older books where they didn't have the freedom to do some of the things that writers today are allowed to do. And it's fun to do. But I wouldn't have any specifics because I read all over the place.
I love that. I think that's amazing. And you are one of the rare few who don't mind writing spice. I work with most people who are like,
I love
this
it.
is my worst nightmare. I hate it. It's so funny. It cracks me up. So I won't make you go into that, other than the fact that I just love that you enjoy it. And I feel like it shows. Like, I feel like
do
he's having
love
fun.
it. And one of the things that I do, and maybe this will be helpful for any writer friends out there who are listening, but one of the things that I do decide before I write is the spicy scenes are not just random. When I'm doing the character work, I actually consider that. And I'm like, what are some of the things that could or would happen with this couple? What are some of the dynamics that may show up based on their personality traits? Because there is nothing that will take me out of a spicy scene more when a character does something out of left field and you're a little bit surprised, like, oh, that took a turn, and it's spice just for spice's sake or just to be like naughty or dirty. I'm like, well, but I don't really believe that between these two based on this dynamic that's been building for 50% or however long. So it is actually fun because it is a piece of the puzzle in their romance. And how does the spice sort of poke at old wounds or heal old wounds in ways that are unique and fun? And, then you can add some of the fun lines or the, different surprises that are in there. But I enjoy them. I think they're a lot of fun.
I love that. And I just feel like it shows. Like, I'm like, oh, she's having a blast. I love this. Amazing. Okay. I would love, now we'll kind of zoom in a little bit and talk about the backlist. You have really something for everyone, I feel like, which is so special. And I found you through the Sullivans. Tori Ann Reads on TikTok. I just happened to see a one look promo video, and it was one of the first 10 books I read, like when I was in my beginning reader phase, which is just so fun to hear about your early phases. I was like, well, Lena, you're very involved in mine. So
I love to hear that. And that's such a great place to dive in, because I really feel that was when I really feel that series, and then leading into the King series, is when I felt like I found my voice. I felt like I had a little bit of experience. I had a little bit of a flow in terms of what I like to write and how I like to write. Because my first series my debut series was only 3 books, and it was pretty straightforward, small town. Then my second series, I was just having fun, and I decided to write Mafia Cowboys, because why would you not write that? That sounded like a great idea. And I think at the time, though, because I was such a new author, I wasn't really sure how to market it, because I'm like, well, it's not dark mafia and it's not quite small town, even though they're on a ranch. And so it was a little bit of a struggle for me to understand, what do my readers want and need, and how do I get these books in their hands? So then when it came to the Sullivans, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to write exactly what I love and what I love to read, and what I hope that people will also love to read, and just organically try to find my people that way. And that was when I really noticed people picking it up and recommending books to other people. And I just had so much fun. I mean, rival families, what's not to love? It's so much built-in tension and small town gossip. So that was a perfect spot for you to sort of dive into the Lenaverse, if you will.
I loved it. Yes, it was perfect. And then I went back immediately and got caught up, and it was just so fun to follow along from there. I think it must have been just no, one of the Kings was my like one of my very first arc reads. So it's just like I am very
That's so fun.
Lena longtime fan, obviously. When we're looking at your backlist, and this may be like from series to series, and we can narrow it down if needed, but did any story come to you like super easily? And then were there any stories that were like, I just like it's really hard to get this right? Anything jump out at
Yeah.
you?
I will say one, as I'm looking at my bookshelf, one that was actually really hard to write. And it wasn't because of the story or that anything like that was a struggle. It was One Chance, which is my first
My
friends to
man.
lovers. And we love Lee. He's amazing.
He's
But here's
everything.
the thing that I struggled with, which they were so good for each other and they had been friends for so long. I was struggling as the writer to believe that these beautiful people had never ruined the friendship before this, that they had
Sure,
never
why
crossed
not?
that
Yeah.
line. And I write characters that are older. So it's not like, oh, this is the first time I'm feeling this and I'm going to be brave and share my feelings. No, like these people are usually in their late 20s, mostly in their early 30s. I love to write, for whatever reason, my brain always gets stuck on 33. I love it when
Love
people
it.
are 33. Like that's the perfect sweet spot for me. So that one was, I was really trying to not only make their conflict and tension believable, but make it meaningful to them as characters and why their friendship was so valuable that it was really scary to risk that friendship. And then what would happen if they did cross that line and it didn't work out. So that one was really, I struggled with that one, I think, simply because I don't know, maybe it's my personality that I would be like, look, I would ruin the friendship. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Yes.
I would have told him I wanted to see him naked. But yeah, that it was really fun. And I was so pleased with how it came out in the end. But if you will notice, when you're looking at my books, Friends to Lovers is few and far between
It
because
is, yes.
I find it really hard to make that believable that one person wouldn't crack, right? And that they would just keep the friendship and not risk it. So yeah, that one was tricky. And then I think you also asked if there was anything that came super easily.
Yes.
And I will say there are certain books that do just kind of fall off the page. Beneath the Frost was one of them. I loved them so much. And that was such an easy one. I think anytime they're roommates, it does also make it easy because you've got built-in tension of you just can't get away from this person. I love a good like accidentally walking in on someone's scene. Those are always super fun. And I really loved in the King series, Just Like That, which is so funny to me because that book was never supposed to exist. So in Just Like That, it's book number 4 in the King series. JP is the male main character. He was never going to get a book. When I
It's
was back
crazy.
writing the Sullivans, the Kings were these sort of mysterious bad boys, and there was like a whole bunch of them. And JP is sort of the protege of his father, who he was going to take over the family empire. And he was a jerk. Like he was just going to be an asshole. And I kept seeing in my reader group, I can't wait for JP's story. I love a redemption arc. And then I realized, oh no. I have made him just mysterious enough and just grumpy enough that people were like
Yes.
salivating for his story.
There's a market for this.
And so I did put it on the back burner though. I told myself, I made a promise to myself and to my reader that I wouldn't write his story just to write it. It had to be the perfect story. And then I think I was, obviously somewhere I couldn't get my notes app fast enough, but I thought of his storyline, who his sort of contemporary would be, the female main character that would just push all of his buttons, and what his growth story arc would be. I still, to this day, it's one of my favorite stories I've ever written. It fell off the page. It was beautiful and heartbreaking, and just where you get to peel back those layers and understand like, oh, he's really actually not a jerk. He's protecting all of these people that he is trying so desperately to keep safe and keep the business afloat and all of these things, while taking the brunt of his father's abuse and manipulation. And then it's just heartbreaking the way it plays out, because the subplot in that series is they're finding out what happens to their mother, who disappeared when they were very young children. She just left. And then they realize that might not be entirely true. So that one, I felt like I flew through writing that book, and I was so excited when I came out on the other side that it came together in the way that it did. So it was all thanks to my readers, because originally
Love
that
it.
book was never going to exist.
Amazing. And we're so glad it does. And speaking of the Kings,
Mm.
I am so excited to see the Kings on shelves. When I walk in
Oh,
the store, like, what has it been like? So, for anyone who does not know, the Kings family series has been picked up to be traditionally republished with Kensington, and it is in a retailer near you. Every 2 months, we'll be getting a new book in that series on shelves. What has it been like to get to relive this series and see it out in the world like this?
it's been unreal in the best ways. I feel like I love this series so much. It's perfect. It's the one that I get to see in retailers. I would walk through Target or Walmart or Barnes and Noble, and in my head, I would never dare to say it out loud, but in my head, I would sort of whisper to myself, one day you're going to see your book and it's going to be great and you're going to love it. I got to live that experience just last week. So the first book in the series has been out since like the very, very end of March, but it wasn't at any retailers sort of near my house. And so people were tagging me and posting and putting pictures online of when they would see it in their Target or their Walmart. And it was always so fun. But I had the opportunity to walk in and just to see it on the shelf. I didn't think I was going to cry. I burst into tears immediately. I was very blessed to be on a writer's retreat. So I was surrounded by author friends who just get it and they understood and they were so excited. Their books were there right next to mine. It was truly a dream come true. And I love that Kensington is choosing to release the books every other month. While it's kind of insane, it's so great because I feel like this is the kind of series that people just rip through, and it's so fun to see people get really excited for the next book and know it's coming. So it's been a whirlwind. It's been an amazing time so far, and I've got book 2 coming out at the end of this month. So I'm really excited for people to get their hands on it who maybe are physical book readers who didn't know me beforehand, and now they get a chance to dive into this world that I love so much.
Incredible. It has just been so fun to be popping into a Barnes and Noble or a Target, and I'll send you a picture and I'll be like, here I am again.
Oh,
It's
it's
just
like
so
makes
exciting.
my day. It is the highlight of my
Yes.
day to see people really excited and to see it. It was really fun to be
Yeah.
able to show my kids and say, "Oh, look, there's mom." And they're
Ah,
so funny. They talk about my author friends as if they're close personal lifelong friends
sure.
they know, and many of them they've never even met, but they'll be like, "Oh, there's her book. There's her book. Oh, you know her, right?" And it's so funny
So
because
fun.
they get curious looks from people when we are in a busy store, but they're as
Sure.
excited about it as I am. So
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm sure it's just so fun to be like, Mom can crush and live out her dreams, and you can too, and all those fun things, which I absolutely love. I'm such a big fan. I personally recommend reading The Sullivans and Kings, for the peak interconnectedness of the rival families, but there's no bad place to start. They're truly interconnected standalones. So,
I agree. Yeah, I
mhm.
definitely recommend when people ask if I'm hard
Mhm.
pressed to, well, tell me exactly where to start. I love seeing the rivalry part of it
Yes.
really dialed up in the Sullivan series, which started with One Look, which is where you
Mhm.
started, which is why I say it's perfect.
Yep.
That subplot takes you through the origin of the feud and why they're feuding, and then shifts in the King's book to their mother and what happened
Amazing.
to her, and them sort of uncovering some of that. So
Yeah.
definitely can dive in anywhere, but I'm an in order reader, diehard
Sure.
in order
Yep.
reader. There is nothing that throws me for a loop more than when you're reading and a couple shows up
You're
and
like,
somehow you get this vague idea that you should know them and they're already together. I'm like, dang
yes.
it,
You're like,
I've got to
dang
go
it.
back and look. And you realize you picked
Yep.
up book 15 in a series.
Sure.
It's
You're like,
game over
oh,
at that point.
yep. And you're like, and we're already here. We're already committed. Yep. No, I love that series so much. I'm sure you've been asked this a million times, and you may just say none of the above. Are you a King or Sullivan?
Oh, I will answer that wholeheartedly. I have
Okay.
always been a King girly for sure.
That's so funny.
Even
I
when
think
I was
I'm a
writing the
Sullivan
Sullivans.
person.
I think a lot of people who started with the
Hmm.
Sullivans, they're just beautiful, wonderful, loyal hearts
Yeah.
and souls. I knew when I was plotting the Sullivan series that there was going to
Hmm.
be these rival families. And if readers responded well to it and if
Sure.
they wanted it, I knew I was going to write the Kings.
Yeah.
And it was a little sick pleasure that I could see how many I could get to turn from Sullivan
I
girls to
love
King
it.
girls. And in today's day and age, I get a lot of readers who'll say, "Well, I'll just why choose it." I'm like, I love that for
Yes,
you.
that's amazing.
But I do
We,
think I'm a King girl. I like a bad
yeah,
boy.
we were giggling. I was on a readers retreat this weekend. Lots of Lena Hendrix readers present, and we were discussing because the town is kind of sorted into a King or Sullivan side. And
Yep,
we were like, okay, well, it's the Enneagram and the Myers-Briggs and the Kings and Sullivans.
that's
And
right.
you
I love
and you
it.
have to fall within one of these personality types. We got to do an Instagram post like that for you at some point and be like,
Yeah,
sort
it's like a
yourself.
sorting hat. I love it
Yes.
because you do have to pick your side of the bar, and
You
everyone in
do.
town knows whose side you're on.
Yes. So I would love to know, because I truly don't know. It was very even split with the girls I was with this weekend, if one wins out or the other, because it kind
Yeah,
of, that would be fascinating.
that
So
would be.
I'm gonna switch gears to my favorites. One of my favorite, Star Harbor is just everything to me. Every book gets better and better and better and better, which is crazy. And what was it like after being an out of towner for so long to totally change gears and have to go to an entirely new town?
That was actually really hard at first because if you think about it, if you look at the Kings and the Sullivans as one continuous world, that's 9 books in the same place.
Right.
And I love it so much and I love them so much that it was a little hard to frame my mind around how do I make a town that feels different. It's sort of in the same geographical location, so that part stays the same. You want it to feel familiar but not redundant, or people to think, oh well, like I already know this town, it's just like out of towner, because it's so different. And so one of the things that I put in there that I love is there is an element to this small town in Star Harbor, which is the entire town has grown up around this ghost story. It's local lore, and the town is revolving around the Lady of the Dunes and her ghost and her story. And everybody has a story about the time they saw the lady, and it's become embedded in their identity as a town. And it's so
Mhm.
fun. We actually have a local ghost story near me that's not similar, but there are threads that I've woven through that
Love that.
remind me of that and how fun it was as a kid to be able to share your story of when you saw the lady and that kind of thing.
Sure.
And then for that series to really explore what if it wasn't the way that you always thought it was? What if the story is different? And who
Yes.
is this woman that's become essentially a celebrity in the afterlife, and
Right.
these sisters unraveling the mystery because the entire town truly believes that their older brother is well and good and cursed. So
Bless
it's
them.
been really fun. I have so much
I
fun
just
with
can't
this
wait.
series. I love
Yes.
this town, and it meant a lot that you loved it so much because
Oh
I
my
was
God.
so excited to dive in. And I ended up having, for me, I needed to fall in love with Star Harbor after loving Out of Towner so much. And
Sure.
so
Hmm.
as that grew and developed, it's just been really fun to come back to this town that feels really unique, but also still has that warmth of a small town that I find so much
Yes.
comfort in when I'm writing.
It's so beautiful. It's just one of my favorite places. You've kind of had this through line with the lady and then with the king's mother story, like where there's this kind of like just undertone through line. Do you know how these things will end as you're writing, or are you on the journey with us?
It's a little bit of both, but mostly I know.
Okay.
So I knew with the mother, I knew even way back in the Sullivan series,
Sure.
I knew what the real story was and what the story the kids had been fed was.
Love it. Okay.
With the lady, I know the big stuff. I know
Yes.
exactly where it's going and what gets revealed. The things that I have fun discovering are little hints that get dropped as I tease and weave in. Sometimes I like to put in little nuggets where somebody might not realize it was a thing until book
Little Easter
5.
eggs.
And yeah,
Yeah,
those Easter eggs are just mostly for myself, and it keeps it really fun to tease
sure.
little hints. But I mostly know before I go into it the big reveals.
Yes. I've been, I've been obsessed with this series. I think what I am so obsessed with about Star Harbor is the vulnerability of all 6 characters that we've met so far. I feel like they're vulnerable in ways that, like, in their own unique ways, but in such, like, gutting, beautiful, raw, and real ways.
Mm.
And was that intentional? Is that just who they are as people and, like, what that community is? And is it hard for you to write such vulnerable stories?
I love therapy, FYI. Like, I think it's
Therapy.
so beautiful.
Yes.
And there is just something about somebody being vulnerable and not being perfect. I think I struggled for myself with perfectionism, and part of my writing is therapy also. So it's, it's cathartic for me too. And I really love the idea that people can change and be vulnerable and still be strong or still fight for what they want. A lot of times that unfolds in small pieces. As I'm writing, I don't necessarily go into it thinking like, oh, I'm just going to rip their heart out in this one. Sometimes it just accidentally happens. And there
Sure.
are moments where I do have to take a step back and breathe a little bit and ask myself, like, oh, was that a little intense? Like when I knew in book 1 that at the end of book 1, Wes was going to have an accident, he was going to lose a limb, there was going to be guilt that his best friend carries with him because it was the only reason he was out there, that he called him and all of that. I had to pause and ask myself, like, is that a little dark? Did I take that a little too far? And then I was like, you know
Sure.
what? I'd never read a male main character who was an amputee, and what that could do to somebody who was formerly like pretty confident and
Sure.
happy-go-lucky and sort of the man of the hour, and how that would shake the person he thought that he was.
Sure.
And I also really like doing research. And so I spoke with a ton of amputees. I was welcomed into a Facebook group, and my friend Catherine works with men and women who are various types of amputees. And I
Wow.
just owe so much to her. I had so many questions.
Yes.
And I enjoy that research part, and just being able to see people be vulnerable is, I think, really beautiful because it's not easy. And
Mm-mm.
I just think that it makes them more real if, he's not just, oh, he's an alpha, he's grumpy. I mean, yeah, that's easy. You can write 100 of those
Sure.
characters, but how do you make him also sensitive? How do you make him also have a moment of weakness? I have a harder time writing. I'm trying not to give too much away in Beneath the Frost. I have a harder time writing the moments where they really get the rug pulled out from under them,
Sure.
because by the time I get there in a book, I really care about these fake people.
Yes.
And sometimes I have to tell myself, like, nope, you held back because you didn't want to hurt him, and you just
Sure.
have to. Like, sometimes life
Right.
does hurt, and so sometimes I do some revising and I'm like, I'm so sorry. And as I'm
Um,
typing, I just like,
yes.
oh, I just have to. This is going to be really embarrassing for you and mortifying, and all of your fears coming to the surface, but I promise I'll make it up to you in the end.
Yes.
Because they do
Oh my
feel
gosh.
real. When you're writing, you feel bad for these fictional people.
Oh my gosh. It's just, I will never forget because she has the opening chapter and then we switch to his POV,
Mm.
and I'll never forget. Like within the first few lines, I was like, I need to buckle in. I was planning to read a few chapters. I will be reading this whole thing right now, and he is about to be everything to me. Like,
I did
just,
put him through the ringer for sure. He
man.
definitely, yeah, he struggled a lot. And I will say he was probably my most damaged is not the right word. That is
No.
absolutely not the right word for him. But I think that he was the most, the hero that I think struggled the most with his mental health for good
Yes.
reason.
Yes.
But that was a through line when I was speaking with the men and women that I talked to, when, especially the men, when I was doing research, every single person
Hmm.
had a moment where they were really struggling with who they were because their entire identity had now shifted. And so
Sure.
I think it would have done the story a disservice had I not tapped into some of that struggle and tapped into, sort of that darkness of people giving up on themselves and just
Mhm.
needing somebody else to show them, hey, you don't have to go it alone. And so it
Right.
was, I think it was the saddest I was when I was
Yeah.
writing him, but just knowing that his vulnerability would see him through to the end. And he just
Sure.
had to sort of accept some new changes in his life. And
Yes.
Clara was a part of those changes, and it
Yes.
ended up being really beautiful. And I was very proud at the end of it that it came together in such a raw and real way. I love that
It
story so
did.
much.
I feel like you do write characters who have been through a lot, but this was
Mm,
one of the first times they were going through a lot. Like you,
yes.
or like you have characters who go through things on page, but to like be at the lowest of lows, and I think it's a very common human experience to say like, well, I'll worry about finding love when I'm at my best or when I've figured myself out. And to read a story where it was like you don't have to be at your best to be loved by someone was just like very special. And the other thing that just was so like I will stay with me forever about this book is the lack of pity Clara has at all times and for him. And the fact that he had not experienced that from people. And it was just like, there's no pity. The two scenes that I just go back to and reread, and I'm not a rereader, but I'm like, I got to see it again, do it again. Is there's a moment in the bar where she asked him to dance, and he's like,
Oh, I
what?
know.
Like, it's like art burst out into tears because she didn't even think anything of it. She was just like, we're going to go dance. Like, do you want to dance? And it just wasn't a question to her. And of course, the sled scene is classic, but my favorite is when they run into each other in the grocery store and she makes
Oh,
a
yeah.
joke where she says, are you going to go hop to it?
Hop to it,
You know?
you know?
And so I just like, that was special. So was that an intentional choice or is that just who she is? Or what was that process like?
That was very intentional. When I set out to write her, I think because people in life have really good intentions and
Mm-hmm.
they want to help and they want to make things easier. And one of the things when I was doing a lot of this research in these interviews was the pity that kind of came along with some of that help, or the
Sure.
feeling sorry for somebody. I mean, it was one of the most infuriating things. And they would say,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you would have never asked me if I needed help with that before. Why are you
Right.
asking me now? And it would cause some anger there. And I loved the idea that she wouldn't ever treat him like he was broken. She would never treat him
Mm-mm.
like he was less because he had gone through something. And I liked that she was kind of funny about it, and that she was
Yeah.
the one who could see him for who he was, not for what he went through or what he looked like or any of those external factors. That she just
Sure.
wanted to know the guy that she always kind of had a crush on because it was her brother's friend and he was older and all
Yeah.
of that. And it didn't change him in her mind. And so that was always really fun. It was fun to have that sort of uniqueness about her. And it was also really cool for me to be able to have her then slowly become more protective. She didn't want people
Yes.
pitying him
Um,
either.
the caption
She,
is in the coffee shop with Kit, where
yeah,
she's like,
where
he's fine.
Kit's trying to get the dirt, right? She wants the
Mm,
scoop, and Clara just feels really icky about talking about him, about talking about what
yes.
he's going through. She starts to develop these really protective feelings because she realizes that every single other person in his life, they love him and they mean really well, but it isn't
Sure.
what he needs. And she realizes that, her approach just might work.
Yes. They're so special. And I could go on and on about this series, but what I will say is you could go on and on because we're going to be giving away a set of this series, which is so exciting. So I'm going to put all the details in the caption here and it will be on social media as well for your chance to get your hands on these because it's truly just one of my all-time favorites. It's one of those series that is at the top of my list to recommend. So I'm very excited to be able to pass that along to one of the amazing listeners of Book Club and thank you to Lena for that.
Oh
So
my
we'll
gosh.
just get all the details in the caption.
I love to give things away. So I am more than happy to do it. Cannot wait for people to get their eyes and or ears on this series. So yeah, I'm
Yes,
thrilled.
I can't
Best of
wait.
luck.
It's just the best of the best. And I've talked about it on Book Club every week. So I feel like people are like, if you haven't read it yet, now's your chance.
That's right.
But transitioning a little bit, there's more to come in Star Harbor. The Kings are being released, and then you're in the middle of working on something really cool. Can you talk about just what is next and what is on the horizon for all Lena Hendrix fans?
Yeah, so I am actually wrapping up a couple of books. So in
Amazing.
2027, which feels like a lifetime away, if we're being
That's
honest, but it's really not.
it's
In
not
early 2027, readers will get to go to a brand new town. It is
so
also
exciting.
Western Michigan, so still a little bit on that coast, a little further up. And
Amazing.
they get to go to a new town. Kensington had asked me to write two books for now. We'll see if that gets extended to any more, but there are two books in a new town, all brand new characters, maybe some fun little cameos from
Ah,
previous series, but it is so much fun. I'm finishing second round of revisions for book one, and I just sent off draft one of book two. So it is
amazing.
all coming together. These characters are just so much fun. The town is really cool and different. So yeah, I
Love
cannot
that.
wait for readers to just continue on the journey, and seeing those books in stores when they release will be really fun because this will
Yeah.
be a front list release, which means when the ebook comes out, like ebook and audio
Yeah.
and paperback, the paperbacks will also be in stores. So it'll all happen at the
Incredible.
same time. So yeah, it's been really, really fun. I can't wait. I'm so
I'll be there.
excited.
Can't wait. And
Hmm.
then when, not exact dates, but just generally speaking, might we be returning to Star Harbor?
So I am diving in to writing book four, which
Can't wait.
people have been so excited about. I've been really excited about this book
Yes.
too, actually, since the beginning. And so I'm going to start writing that one. That comes out this fall, just
Amazing.
giving me some time with the King's re-releases and all that to
Totally.
not only like write it, but also be present with my kids and all all the fun
Yes.
stuff that
Fit
happens over the
human.
summertime.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll be working on that, and then the fifth and final book of the Star Harbor series will come out sometime early next year, and just wrap everything up and finally figure out what's going on with Hayes and this curse, and
Don't
is he
worry
really
about them.
cursed? Where did it come from? I
Yes.
love Hayes, and I love poor Hayes. Like, I have to think of
Yes.
fun and new creative ways to just make him entirely
I
inconvenienced
know.
and cursed. So that has always been
Cannot
really
wait.
fun. Anytime I see something that happens to somebody, like the car getting towed, even in your
Just now.
at
Yeah.
your place, I'm always like, oh yeah, that would be horrible. Let's write that down for Hayes. That
Yes.
sounds fun.
I just thought of him today because I was receiving text messages from a friend about how badly her car smelled, and she found a McFish in the back
Oh
seat that had just been back
no.
there. And she was like, I don't know what's happening. It's horrible. And she found the McFish fillet. And I just thought that I literally was like, that sounds like something that would happen to
Immediately
Hayes.
going into my notes app.
Yes.
So when you
Yes.
see that, you've heard it
Can't
here
wait.
first,
It's just
straight from
rotting.
Paige. That's right.
Yes. I felt so bad, and I was like, I know of a fictional man who would have this very situation happen to him, so that's amazing. And then Kings will just be making their way onto shelves, which is
That's right.
so
So
exciting.
exciting. And the covers, I am telling you, they just get prettier and prettier, and they're
So
so
beautiful.
fun. The sprayed edges with the guys on the side was such a cute little
Yes.
fun addition, and they're
So
all
funny.
so good. Yeah, so it's going to
Yes.
be fun to see them all lined up when it's all said and done.
Can't wait. And are those edges limited?
Those
Will
are.
they? Yes,
Yeah,
so you got to grab them within this first sprint run, and this is your chance.
that's right.
Yes, one chance, dare we say. So, um, amazing. Well, to wrap us up, I always say you have a captive audience of Lena Hendrix fans. Is there anything you would like to say to your community as we're wrapping up?
I just cannot fully express how grateful I am for not only just readers taking a chance back when this was just a harebrained idea over a glass of wine, but going on the journey with me. I love hearing in your DMs when you're reading books, and
Mhm.
the unhinged DMs are by far my favorite. It is
Love it.
still me who answers all the DMs.
Yes.
I'm in there writing back. I love being there, and just forever grateful for the opportunity to tell fun stories and to have people who want to go into these crazy worlds with me. So you have my heart, you have my gratitude, and I can't wait to see where this fun journey takes us.
Can't wait. I'm so excited for what's next. I'll be there. I have to be there.
Can't wait.
It's a part of my reader journey at this point, so I love it. But thank you so much for joining us after my weeks and weeks and months of episodes talking about the Lenaverse. So I appreciate you taking the time. And to everyone else, I will see you in the next one.